Alright, welcome back. Today's topic, we are going to talk about re-lettering a model, renumbering, but you bought a model, it's lettered for a particular railroad, and you want to get this lettering off and re-decal it with your road of choice. Model we're working on today is Proto 2000 USRA 080. This was a heavy steam switcher, World War I design. Most of these could be found switching right up till the diesel era. So pretty successful. In my research on these, it seems like pretty much every major railroad, I should say, had an example of these with just minor differences. And I am not a rivet counter modeler, so I'm not going to let the minor differences bother me any. I'm not going to modify anything here too much. This is a pre-Marquette model. I'm going to be re-lettering it for the Bessemer in Lake Erie. And the Bessemer's version of this locomotive, the headlight was mounted in the center of the boiler and the bell was mounted where the headlight is here. I'm not going to bother changing that. Anyway, that's also not the point of this video. Let's talk about re-lettering. So, first things first, I got the shell off. I bought this model used. I'm going to do some maintenance to the mechanics on this guy here too. But I find it easy to disassemble the model. And some of this tender here on these Proto 2000 switchers, I have a 0602. They come apart the exact same way. There's 4 screws that hold the tender on. So I'm going to go ahead and take those screws out. And that will allow the shell to come right off. And inside of here you can see the electronics and how this would all be set up for DCC if you so desire to go that route. Anyway, let's make sure we don't lose any of our screws here. And I usually always have a bag or something that I keep everything in as I disassemble a model. But if I can, I will also just put the screws right back in where I got them from. And now that I'm looking at this, it looks like the previous owner probably lost screws for this and stuck in what they had. That's okay. We'll forgive them. Alright. Now, we've got that taken apart. So, there's a few methods out there that I'll see people talk about doing, and there's always debate on what works better. So using this product here called Solvaset. If you don't own a bottle of Solvaset, you should. You can get it from Walters. not very expensive. Bottle of it will last you an extremely long time. Can't imagine going through more than a bottle or two in a lifetime, and that would be if you're a pretty heavy modeler. So what I'm doing here is I'm working the Solvaset onto the lettering, and like I said, there's always debate. People say, oh, this method works good, this method works good, this method works good, and I find it have a lot to do with what manufacturer and vintage a model you're working with. So got a piece of Scotch tape here. This is a method I see people talk about a lot. I have only ever had this work on a couple models. I think basically what it comes down to is a lot of the newer models, the paint is really good, and what used to take stuff off in the past doesn't work so good anymore. So anyway, this is the, get some Solvaset on the logo. I'm going to put a piece of Scotch tape on it, and when I pull the Scotch tape, the lettering will just come with it. I bet this worked great back in the day. Like I said, I've never really had any luck with this working. I mean, that pulled absolutely nothing. Like I said, I've had it work a couple times. Let's get a little more Solvaset on here. And Solvaset is basically MEK. Don't ask me to remember what MEK stands for. Something nasty. In the industrial world, we are not allowed to have it. So, get some Solvaset on here. I'm going to try scrubbing the Solvaset. This is a little, like a foam brush. And it looks like it is taking it off. Very slowly, though. If you were renumbering a unit and you only had one number to get off, and just change one number out, maybe this method would work. I think for this model, we'll be here the rest of our lives. Alright. So we got to get off that lettering. We got to get off the lettering at the end. We got to get the lettering off the side of the headlight. I am going to take this water spout out. I think that's what that's supposed to be. I think it just looks silly, and not really sure what it did on the prototype. But in the pictures I have of the Bessemer versions of these, it's not on there. So I am going to take that off. So let's go to the next approach. I have here plain old jar, and I have a bottle of isopropyl alcohol from CVS. This is 91%. Don't get hung up on what percent it is. It isn't going to matter. The higher the number, the better. Just because the alcohol is what's doing the work. But don't lose sleep over if it's 91 versus 93. Heck, if you got 70, I'm sure it'll work. So, got a jar filled up with alcohol here. Let's just try. Again, it's just laughing at me. Well, I'm having more luck with this than I was with the MEK. Oh yeah, having a lot more luck. I'll put that in that jar so we can just dunk the whole model, because there's probably a good chance we're just going to let this whole model sit in there for a while. One of the beauties of relettering steam locomotives is steam locomotives, for the most part, are just black. So you can always take the sledgehammer method and take all the paint off, and that'll work. Of course, for a safety moment here, doing this, you want to make sure you got some decent ventilation. I got my ceiling fan on here. Yeah, so where the MEK wasn't touching this, the alcohol is. And I think that's one of the things I wanted to show in this video was there's lots of methods out there. They work good on different manufacturers. Sometimes you just gotta try a few things so you find something that works. Alright, you can see that lettering is starting to go away. Never tried using this as a weathering technique to kind of fade out some lettering before I started weathering, but you know, it might work. Biggest advice I could give on stuff like this: be patient. Patience helps. I think I'm going to go through a few of these brushes. Alright guys, you don't have to sit here and watch me do this all day. I'm going to pause the video for a while, and we'll catch up later, alright? I've gotten all the lettering off. after a lot of scrubbing away, and I have rinsed these in some soap and water. I ended up taking all the paint off this tender, so now I'm just going to hit with a quick coat of black with the airbrush. And all I want to do here is just sort of, you see I got the windows masked off. It's a little Scotch tape. I'm not going to paint the whole engine. I'm just going to kind of feather in where I took the numbers off. Just to make it all blend and make it look like I never did anything. This is just water-based paint. I don't care if I get it on myself. It all cleans up real easy. All right. Just while I'm here, I have one freight car that I want to tone the trucks down to. A little crazy with the rust on these guys. I did a little more work on the 080 here that didn't have much to do with putting the decals on it. I got the white stripes on the walkway. You saw me hit it with a quick coat of black. That's partially just to dull it out, but also just covers up the anywhere where we took the decals off. Don't have to do that step, especially if you weather it later. You'll never see it. So in doing my research for this locomotive, I have this book here, and make sure you can see it. Basically some pictures of what these locomotives look like in service, and I want to use that as a guide. And typically I find things like this. I want to look at the logo on the tender, and I'm just going to kind of see that the end of it is roughly in line with the end of the coal chute, and it looks like it's middle top to bottom. Also looks like it's middle left to right of the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of use that as a reference as I place my decals. I find that a really good source of decals is eBay. There is a source for everything for decals on eBay. Just type in what you're looking for. Somebody probably makes it. So what I'm going to do is going to go ahead and cut these out with just a pair of scissors. And I'm going to try to cut it pretty darn close to what I want left, because the decal will leave a film, and we want to minimize how much of that film we got to work with and get rid of. So I want to cut these pretty darn close. Alright, now, just to kind of look at where we are here. Okay, I got the rivet detail that's going to help line me up, top to bottom. And just like in the picture, the end of the logo about in line with the end of the coal chute, and that'll look about center, left or right. And I think if you go out and start measuring this stuff, you're being a little crazy. If it looks right, it's probably right enough. Decal. Got a little saucer of water here. I find that saucers of water work great. And I'm going to just make sure I break the surface tension and actually get that decal under the water. And you don't want to leave it in there too long. It's kind of a balance of, you got to leave it in the water long enough that the transfer will slide off the backing without too much problem, but if you leave it in there too long, it'll just start falling apart. I find it's better to go a little short than long, because you can always put it back in the water if you're fighting it too much. There is no set time. Not all decals are the same. Probably depends how old they are. You just kind of have to get a feel for it. While we're waiting for that, don't underestimate little details. I came in here with just a little micro brush and hit that valve with a little bit of red paint, and I think that really made that pop out. Pretty pleased with that. Alright, so now I'm going to kind of fish that decal up the side. Very carefully pick it up with a pair of tweezers. Slide this out of the way for the sake of the camera. I'm going to roughly get this in place. And I'm going to try to start very gently trying to slide the decal off the paper. There it comes. And I want the decal to be pretty close to where it's going to actually end up. We can slide it around a little, but best to not slide it around more than we have to. Alright. this is the tricky part. Just getting it right where you want it. It's looking pretty good. Now, here is something that I've been doing lately, and you can definitely get into trouble doing this. I just put my finger in a little bit of water, and I just roll onto the decal just a little bit, and capillary action does a lot on these decals. And what that did was make sure there was water all underneath it and that everything was wetted. Now take a scrap piece that you cut off, hold that up to the edge and work that around, and you probably can't see it, but that scrap is just wicking the water right out, and that slid that decal on me. This is always just a little bit of messing around at this point. If you've never done this before, I highly recommend to buy more decals than you need, because you will probably mess some up. The good news, they're pretty cheap. Now I'm just going to try to work that decal down, and I find it to work best to sort of roll on and roll off. Otherwise, that whole decal might just decide to stick to your finger. And that's usually a bad day when that happens. Alright, getting there on this one. Looking pretty good. And I'm just looking carefully if I can see any wrinkles. Or anything silly. I'm going to come along with my X-Acto and just press around the rivets just a little bit. And there we go, we'll have to come back to that. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and do the other side and maybe do some numbers. And once these dry good, we'll come back and talk about what we do next. Alright, got the tender decals on. Wanted to show you a little bit about doing the cab numbers, since I called this video a renumbering video anyway. What I've done is I have cut the individual numbers out of a sheet, a number sheet that I've been working from. You know, if you're lucky enough that you can just grab a set of numbers right off the sheet, like this sheet was numbered for a lot of the typical numbered units from the Bessemer in Lake Erie. not this particular locomotive. So this is going to be number 253. Number 253 is actually in the reference book I'm working out of here. And you can see, make sure, this is the sort of research I do. You can see the cab number is roughly under the windows and centered top to bottom between the sill and the window. Well, it's basically the look I'm trying to go for. So I've got a couple number 3s soaking in the water here. I'll pull the number out. If you touch it against something, you can get some of the water to wick off. Make your life putting it on here a little bit cleaner. And the big secret to doing this is just to have a ton of patience and absolutely nothing else to do today. If you're in a hurry, you will not be happy with your end results. I'm going to slide that around until the numbers look like they're pretty straight, evenly spaced. I start with the middle number anytime I do this. Just because I have found that if I start with the middle number, I can sort of work out, versus if I start to one end, you know, it's like if you got a long name and you're writing on a form, you have to start writing really small towards the end. Starting towards the middle and working out will save you that pain. Now, I weather a lot of my locomotives. In fact, I at least lightly weather all of my locomotives. And if you do this sort of work, weathering will really tie it all together, and you'll never be able to tell unless you really get in and really look that, you know, this wasn't a factory job. I'm just nudging it around just ever so gently. Alright, there's number 253. Roughly centered under the cab window. And we'll set that over here. Here's our tender starting to dry out a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to let this dry real good. I'll put the number on the back of the tender there yet too. We're going to let that dry till tomorrow, and then we're going to come back with the Solvaset. And this is a must-have product if you're going to do this. You just won't get good results without it. I don't think it's possible to get good results without it. Anyway, let's come back tomorrow. All right, welcome back again. Day has passed. Instant for you, hopefully, thanks to the magic of video. You can see here, decals are dry, but they don't look particularly good. You can see, you know, it's just not really on the model. You can see the outline of the transparent film. Definitely doesn't look like it was just painted on there. So, I'm going to use this stuff right here. This is Solvaset. Not very expensive. A bottle lasts you a long, long time. Get a little on your brush, and all you're going to do is just paint that right on over the logo and let that dry. A little bit goes a long ways. Don't need a ton. I'm probably going a little heavy here. Okay, I'm going to set that aside. Come to the engine. You got to be careful. You start getting too much of this on, decals can actually start floating away again on you. Alright. So now we'll pause the video again. And we'll come back and look at that later. And sometimes I find it necessary to do more than one pass of Solvaset. Again, it depends on the manufacturer. Depends on age of decal. Depends on the surface you're putting it on. There's no magic solution here. You just kind of do it till it looks right. Yeah, we'll check back here in a little bit. Alright, we have used the Solvaset. And now that we have used the Solvaset, you can see that that decal looks much more like it's part of the model now. Once we hit this with some clear coat, a little bit of weathering, you will never be able to tell unless you really, really look.